You're listening to the Resilient Author Podcast, the show that goes beyond the pages to explore the grit, courage, and resilience it takes to write and publish a book. I'm your host, Kary Youman, and each week I sit down with authors to uncover the stories behind their stories, the challenges they faced, the breakthroughs they experienced, and the wisdom they've gained along the way. Whether you're working on your first chapter or celebrating your launch, this is the place to find inspiration and practical takeaways for your own author journey. Let's dive in. So, Scott, let's start by just giving the listeners a little bit of context. For those who may not know you yet, what's your book, A Row with Two Chairs, about, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
A Row with Two Chairs is it's a memoir, and it's the story of how I really came from I was working in the music business and as a DJ and doing a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of destructive things in my life. And I had a drug overdose when I was 32 years old, and thankfully woke up from that overdose, which just chapter one. But then it was really about how do I build a life that's worth having another chance because I felt like I wasn't worth it.
Mm.
So for me, that journey place through a lot of faith, a really crazy faith journey because I was not a believer. I was not interested in being a Christian, had no interest in any of that, and ended up very reluctantly going down that road and finding a home for me. It was beautiful.
Mm. I would love to just dive in a little bit more on what you just said. So you describe your story as one of, radical pivots. Can you take us back to that overdose moment and how that like really became a turning point for you?
Sure. I I felt like I didn't have a choice. I mean, I had a choice. I could allow myself to die. Um, But I woke up in the middle of my living room floor and uh, I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't feel my
Mm,
face. All I could see was that there was furniture thrown all around the house. My dogs were laying on I was laying on the floor. My dogs were laying on my legs, looking up at me, and they had a look of concern, if that makes any sense for a dog. And as I stumbled to get up, I saw blood on the walls and blood all over the bathroom. Looked in the mirror, and I had cut myself up with a knife really bad, and
mm,
I'd bitten the end of my tongue off. Um, and I was just about as far down as any person could imagine. I couldn't believe that I was alive,
mm,
considering what I could see in the mirror. And then the shocking reality was these little like momentary flashbacks of realizing that it was me that had done this to myself. There was no one in the house, and I had really found myself in a horrible place. So I just figured what like any person who's totally strung out on drugs, I'm like, I'm going to do my best to get over the cocaine and the meth withdrawal, and I'm going to smoke as much weed as I can to get through the next 5, 10 days. I don't know, and I made it about 6 days until the following Saturday, which was my first Saturday to not work in a nightclub in 10 years.
mm.
And my girlfriend at the time lived down the street from a place that she said was a cool church, and now to me that was almost an oxymoron. There's like no way it could be a cool church. Um, but she said, "Let's go there," and it was it's funny because I was just thinking, man, I just need a place where I can be that there's not going to be drugs in my face because I didn't know what to do with my life.
Mm.
So we went there, and in order for everybody to know that I wasn't one of them, I wore my I think I had steel studded biker jacket and it was all worn out and slid across the ground a few times and some motorcycle boots and holes in my jeans and a cap pulled down to cover the wounds on my face. I was like, they're going to know that I am a heathen, if anything. And we walked into this church, and it was a church of motorcycle enthusiasts, and like everybody had on the same thing I was wearing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Imagine
so it's
that.
pretty funny.
I thought you were gonna say you walked in with a black turtleneck, but maybe that was the second service. Wow. No, I
Totally.
appreciate you sharing that. So most books begin as a spark, just something that starts kind of running through your head. Where did the idea for the book first come from? And was there like a particular moment or experience that really set that into motion for you?
Yeah, 100%. So so the journey of the book really it ends in I'm giving something away and saying it ends in the death of my father, and that's the
Mm,
finality of the book, and it kind of closes a character arc for me.
mm,
Um, but with his death, I don't know if you've lost any parents, but he's the first parent I'd lost, and what I never was prepared for was the fact that when your parents die, all the stories that they haven't told you go with them. And
mm,
and it seems so logical, right? But
mm,
until you've experienced it or faced it, then it's like, oh man, I can't ask about that anymore. I don't even know who I could ask.
mm,
And there are things that I've tried to discern about my dad's life that I can't ask him. So that spurred for me a kind of a wake up call because I've got two boys. I'm 53 years old. I'm kind of old, and I got an 8 year old and a 10 year old. And when I started the book, they were 5 and 7,
mm,
and I thought I have got to sit down and write the true story because it's so asinine. I mean, nobody would believe the things that have happened to me. I mean,
mm,
it really is like beyond belief. But I needed the real truth, like the ugly side, the pretty side. I needed it all to be there so that maybe one day when I was gone, my boys could pick this up and read it and they would know the as much of the whole story as they could.
mm,
So that was kind of what spurred the experience for me. But what I wasn't prepared for, I'd never written a book, don't know anything about writing a book. I enjoy writing. I have done some blog posting and things like that, but I was like, I don't even know where to begin. So
mm,
I found a book coach that could help me stay focused and know, like, just answer basic questions, like how do you start? How do you
mm.
do this? And she was great. She met with me once a week for about 3 months, and she was not prepared for. None of us were prepared. I wrote 140,000 words in 3 months.
Whew. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, Scott.
yeah, and it was just these were just stories that I needed to tell, and so when we kind of dumped all that out there, it was like okay. Then I asked her how long is a book supposed to be, and she's like 80,000 words. I was like, oh crap, this is
Mm,
I've still got more to say. So we started that editing process, and I mean editing. Everybody told me editing would take the longest. I had no idea how many times I would have to read and reread and reread and reread and reread. And then, like, do I really need this paragraph? Um, but I that editing process was grueling, and in the end, I'm happy with what we came out with. I still to this day, when I look at it, I see the like 5 mistakes that I missed, even in the
mm.
10 rounds of editing that we did. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's
I
funny
I
how
could go
that
on and on.
goes.
I'm going to let you answer some or ask some questions so I don't talk over your points here.
Yeah, no, no worries. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I lost my dad as well. And kind of to your point, losing a parent is it hits different, regardless of what the relationship is. So I'm sure your boys will really appreciate that their dad took the time to get 140,000 words out when they're old enough to actually sit down and read it. That's really cool that you took the time to do that. I did some research, and you've been quoted for saying it all came crashing down, or did it? What happened in that season, and how did it shape the path that you're on now?
Well, it's kind of you're asking me to give away some of the great parts of the book, man.
Don't give away too much. Don't give away too much, Scott.
No, it's funny when I wrote that line, it all came crashing down or did it. I was thinking of a specific moment, which is really the turn. If you know much about the story structure, it's the turn from Act Two to Act Three. You know the um, and I love story structure. I love story. I love telling stories. I love all of that. And what I've found as I started to write was I had never experienced this art in this way, and it was so much fun to
Mm,
drop seeds and illusions and like little drops of foreshadowing here or there to say, oh, this is coming or this is coming, trying to build up these alternate story arcs, and it was really a blast.
mm,
But the truth is that it all went crashing down many times, because my perspective of where I was going was nothing like where I ended up. And
Mm,
what I eventually had to learn how to do was to trust. And once you kind of let go of, okay, I don't need to control this anymore. I'm gonna, in my case, I give this control to God. He's obviously doing better at it than me. Let's see what happens, and then just kind of embrace that. And when things happen that feel like it's all crashing down, it's like, is it really all crashing down, or is this what needs to happen for what's coming? And
mm,
that was kind of the big, like, mental shift for me during that journey, was start looking for what room was being made for, the next opportunity, the next adventure.
mm. I feel like I needed to hear that tonight. And I really
Mm.
appreciate you saying that. In terms of that perspective, so were you already going to that cool church when you were in the process of writing the book? Like, did it come from you just getting back in the faith? Like, where did you find that?
All right, so that cool church is called Destiny Church. It's in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. A little shout out, love them. Um, I don't live there anymore. I live in LA now, but no, I came to faith there. Went through a lot of we'll call them adventures. I mean, I went to jail for some bad checks. I did a whole bunch of things that you would think a church, at least I would have thought, a church would have shunned me in a million years. I was dropping F-bombs like crazy every day at church. But somehow these people, they saw that God was working on me, and they just
Mm,
loved me. And they literally just surrounded me every single day with grace and love and compassion. And it was astonishing for
mm,
a non-believer to be in this place. I didn't believe that, first of all, people would ever be that kind, much less a God or anything. I mean, I was shocked.
mm,
And so as I became more adjusted to that, and more surrendered to the adventure, I eventually was invited to go to Switzerland to go share the story of how I came to faith with some youth at a conference there.
mm,
And at the time, I met another pastor who was starting a church in Paris, and he invited me to come help him start his church in Paris, France. And
mm.
so I left Destiny. I was commissioned and ordained as a minister and sent overseas as a missionary, uh,
Wow.
to st- to start a church in the middle of Paris, France.
Mm,
And so,
wow.
yeah, so that's, I mean, this is why the story it's got to be told. It's so amazing, because what I expected, I'm going to give some of my own thunder away, but I thought that, as I was still a fairly young believer, and I still fairly new at this, like, living life without drugs and living life being honest. Because
Mm,
prior to those times, I was a liar. I was a chameleon. I could tell the story and it sounds like I was this bad person, but I wasn't really a bad person. I just was not comfortable disappointing people. So I tried to
mm,
be to everyone what they wanted me to be.
mm,
And what that meant was I had no idea who I was. No
mm,
idea.
mm,
And so this journey through faith really allowed me to start exploring those things. And so by the time I went to France, I had a pretty good idea of who I was, but I had this naive expectation that I could do this gigantic thing for God, and then I just kind of could check that off, and I wouldn't have to do it again.
mm,
Um, and it's funny now to say it, but like, I got there and it's like, oh crap, this is where the work starts. I mean, I've like sacrificed everything to get here, and it's not like I've landed and like, oh, it's all peachy keen now. But my visualization of what that time in France was going to be, and what that, starting a church there, I thought that was going to be one thing, and it was something completely different. And by
mm,
the time that I came back to the United States, I felt like a failure.
mm,
Um, but with the the perspective of time, and obviously able to talk to other people about that time, I have since learned that the things that were really happening behind the scenes aren't the kind of things that draw people to the mission field. And it was like I was sitting up every night talking to this pastor Mark. We sat in a 125 square foot apartment that we shared together.
wow.
in the top of a building in France, and we would sit up and we would watch Friday Night Lights and eat pizza and talk about God and laugh and race each other around Paris. Um, and what it turned out, that was probably the most important thing I could have done because Mark is a Texan, but he'd been in Europe for years and he'd forgotten a lot of, maybe that's not fair, but lost touch with his roots of being an American and being from a place where, football comes out every Friday night. Um, and I think I was able to help him get back in touch with those roots. And then
Mm,
he also, for me, became
mm,
a brother that I never had in my life, and we still to this day connect as often as possible. I was just at his house this last summer in Switzerland with my family, which is
mm,
amazing.
mm.
Um, if I'm
Yeah,
rambling, stop me. We can
no,
go somewhere
you're
else.
not. You're not at
All right.
all. Just as you were sharing that, I was just thinking about the expression "let go and let God." Just really
Mm.
breathing life into that expression. So just just again taking another little detour here. Looking back at the DJ booth, the pool pit, and now the boardroom. What thread connects all these versions of you?
Oh man, that's a great question. Um, and it's taken me some time to get to an answer. I feel like, man, let me take that away. I don't feel like, I know now. I can say I have confidence in this. I love to build experiences for people.
Hmm,
And I can see this in my time as a DJ. I would work for good 4 hours with a crowd of anywhere from 500 to 5,000 people, bringing them on and off the dance floor. It was like chess, and I absolutely loved it. And
hmm,
it was it was an art that I never expected to enjoy as much as I did.
hmm,
And then when I had my overdose, I walked away from all of that, and I thought I'm going to have to live a different life. And then
hmm,
I found that I love to create those experiences within the church environment and bring some of the know-how that I have from the secular world and bring it into the church and enjoy it that way.
hmm.
And then years later, I met my wife, and my wife is a jazz singer, and she actually has the same kind of love, and that she loves to create these experiences. So I turned that into a vocation where I do that now with mechanical information. I try to create emotional experiences for people, and I can see the common thread all the way through.
Huh. Hmm. You mentioned being a DJ. Was there a particular genre of music that you were sort of a master in?
Well, it was dance music.
Okay.
I would say that my ability that made me good was my ability to read the crowd. Um,
Hmm, hmm,
so I was of that mindset that I was there to entertain and there to
hmm,
make sure that they had the time of their life.
hmm,
So that probably meant that I would get to play maybe three or four songs that nobody really knew.
hmm.
But the majority of the night was things that people already knew and just trying to get those girls on the dance floor because then they'll pull the
That's
boys
it.
on.
Pull the guys out. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing like a DJ who knows how to work the crowd. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously we don't want to give the book away. We want people to read it. But your book does, it doesn't shy away from hard truths. And again, I'm not asking you to give the book away, but would you be open to talking about like what was the most difficult truth to put on the page and what did it reveal about you?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, you didn't tell me you're going to ask all these hard questions. Um, I'm just kidding. Uh, the most difficult thing for me was to write the first chapter. The first chapter is
Mm,
the true story of my overdose, the pieces that no one actually had all at one time. There was not any one person in my life that had heard or read or seen or experienced all of the pieces that I put together in chapter one.
mm,
Um, so it was very difficult to write that out because I mean I had not even talked to my mother about what had happened.
mm,
So here I was getting ready to release a book, to publish a book, and I was like, "Mom, we need to have a talk." And
mm,
and so she came to visit, and it took her for a long drive and told her the story, and we cried a lot together, and it was terrifying.
mm,
But it was like, okay, now that I know that she knows that, I'm okay with letting her read it. So then I sent her a an early version of the book, and she read it in one sitting. and
Wow.
yeah, took 12 and a half hours. But
Mm,
in that first chapter, she texted me at the end. She said, I finished chapter one and I'm very sad, but
mm,
I'm also encouraged because I know where the story goes.
mm,
So I think
mm.
that was the hardest to write. I've recently gone and recorded the audiobook, and I think it's interesting um, to read it yourself, like for me to read the book, and like when we finally release the audiobook, you'll be able to hear my voice crack many times. There's a lot of really difficult things to talk about.
I bet. Yeah. Wow. Sounds like your mom's an incredible woman. That's really cool that she held the space for you to be able to share that. And wow, read it in one sitting, 12 hours. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. By the way, I wrote 140,000 words in 3 months, but we're edited down to 100,000 words, so it's not that long. But
Okay. I mean, it sounds like it's a page turner, though. I mean, I think if the story's good, people don't mind how long it is.
yeah, well, yeah, I would agree. I'm encouraged by the books that have shaped my life.
Mm.
And I think the one that I kept in mind the most was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
That's number one for me too, Scott.
That's a great book.
Oh, so good.
So I kept thinking about, I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it, but
Mm.
I wanted my book to be, I mean, it sounds stupid to say it, but I wanted it to be like The Alchemist for somebody where they could
Mm.
see this adventure that, yes, it's a memoir, but it reads like a novel.
Mm.
And yes, it's a page turner and all those things, but the important thing is to have a relationship with the main character, which of course is me, but when you're trying to write it that way, it's very interesting. And then I'm married now. I've been married almost 12 years, but I
Mm.
write
Wow.
about yeah, I write about this girl that I was very much into. And I mean, I was really into this girl.
Mm.
So to write about that and to do it in you're trying to bring your reader along, right? So you have to
Mm.
get into those emotions. You have to take yourself to that place. And then every night I'd finish writing and I'd go back to my bedroom where I'd say, okay, babe, I need you to read this. And there finally came a point where she's like, I don't want to read anymore. Like, but I almost felt like I was cheating on my wife, you know? 'Cause I'm not, but it's like I'm in this space and I need you to be here with me. Um,
Mm.
that was interesting too.
I can only imagine. I think about, just some of those Hollywood method actors, like how deep into the role they have to get and just really
Yeah.
surrender to that. It sounds like you did. Scott, you've mentioned that change is a superpower rather than something to fear. What do you mean by that? And how can someone start to reframe change in their own life?
Well, change is the only thing we're guaranteed, right?
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
if you look at like what is actually 100% guaranteed, I can promise you that everything's going to change.
Mm.
So you can spend your life sitting around waiting for that to happen, and then when it does, react to it. And I think that's the way most of the world operates.
Mm.
Um, the people that I like to hang out with and what I try to do in my own life is I try to embrace that change and I try to lead with it. Like, hey, let's just change it. Let's just, if it's going to change anyway, might as well be in my control or in my whatever, at my demand. Let's call it that. Um,
Yeah.
but hey, yeah, let's change it and see what happens. And then everything fails. That's okay. We learn faster when we fail. So let's fail fast, change, change, change. And as you get more comfortable with the change idea, then you get, it allows you to take bigger risks and to try to change things faster, harder. And especially when you start learning that failure is really an illusion. Failure is just a
Mm.
fast way to learn, right?
Mm.
So when we start seeing that failure is an illusion, then hey, I'm going to go try this and I'm going to bomb at it, and that's okay because then I'm going to learn that that's not the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it a different way, and I'm going to keep
Mm.
going until we find the one that works. And I've really come to embrace change as really my superpower. And then when I talk to people that have read the book and they look at the book and they, oh, this is all about risk taking, and I can see that. Um, and but it's not. It's really about learning to appreciate that things are going to be okay
Mm.
and being willing to embrace a different path than maybe what you expected 5 minutes ago. Let's try something different, see if it works better.
Mm.
And once you can get into that space, it really opens your world up to so much more than you ever could have dreamed of.
Mm. I imagine I'm not the only person that needed to hear that. Mm. That's such a good reminder. Scott, writing a book, often, as you're saying, it often mirrors the process of personal transformation. How did writing A Row with Two Chairs shape you personally? Your perspective, your confidence, or even just like your sense of purpose?
Well, I can tell you that writing it was an exercise in patience.
Mm,
Um, I'm I'm my very nature, I'm a head down, push through kind of guy,
mm,
and this is not writing isn't a place where you can do that. I mean, you can, but the product is not what you're going to want in the end.
mm,
And so it was really difficult for me to give it the time to um to let like the real character arc start forming, trying to figure out who the B characters were. It was also hard to, like I told you, there was 140,000 words, so you can quickly understand there's at least 40,000 that have been cut. I would say more like 60,000 were cut. That's a
mm.
lot of stories, what do they call them? Little darlings that we had to put to death.
Mm,
And that's difficult.
yeah.
But when you start separating yourself, like this is not just a memoir that's about Scott's life. This has got to be a book that is a page turner and that hopefully people will enjoy. Um, so if that's the case, then everything that's in the book needs to support that. And if it doesn't support that, then it's got to go. That's
Mm,
tough, you know.
mm,
But then I think that was one big transformation, and then the other one that just popped in my brain when you said that and it kind of made me laugh was prior to publication, I had controlled. I knew I had controlled who knew my story.
mm,
I could stand in front of a church and tell everybody, but I made the decision for that to happen, and I knew that every person in that room now knew my story, or I could tell someone individually or whatever. What I wasn't prepared for was once I published my book that I no longer knew who knew my story. I didn't know.
mm,
It's like that story, it suddenly, I mean, it's still my story, but it felt almost like I gave it to the world, and now it's completely out of my control. And that's a scary feeling.
yeah. Very vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then you get used to it, and
Mm.
and it's funny to talk to people now that say, I've read your book. It's like, oh, cool. Any surprises? What did you experience? And it's always fun. So,
Mm. Does it surprise you what people say sometimes, what they pulled from the book?
yeah, yes. Well, probably less now. I mean, it's been out for a year, so I've heard from a lot of people, and I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised what hooks them the most.
Mm,
Chapter one is a hook chapter. It's made to hook you. It hooks you from the very beginning. Drops you right into the middle of this overdose experience. And that was my intention as a writer. So I expected that to be the hook. But then how do you take this person that's falling apart in front of you and make him someone that you love? And you got to get there pretty quick. So it's always interesting to me to hear where was the part when you started giving a crap about this guy, this author, this writer that
mm,
was as strung up as possible. I mean, when did you start caring? And it's interesting, like the different things for different people, how they get there,
mm,
because it's got to
mm,
happen fast. So there's multiple ways that we could get there, but it's like, whoa,
mm.
everybody's different.
Yeah, that's such a good question for an author to ask. Like, when do you start caring about the main character? That's really good. Scott, you often talk about finding our unique voice. How does someone begin to discover and trust that voice, especially during a season of transition or uncertainty?
Wow. I think that it comes down to a lot of things. The first thing you've got to do is you got to start trusting yourself, and that's the question. How do you trust yourself in that space?
Mm,
You've got to try things, and you've got to be okay with failure. But I'm going to back up a little bit because I feel like the answer I need to give you, and the more accurate answer, is that it's not you that you have to trust. It's
mm,
really about learning to have a relationship with something bigger than you and be a part of a story that's bigger than your own. And then as you start to see that, oh, the world doesn't actually revolve around me. I'm a supporting character in a bigger story.
mm,
Then it allows you to take some of the personal feelings away from risk. And that inner voice that we're listening to guide us, to help us become more who we are, um, it basically comes in two different ways.
mm,
One is demeaning, shame-filled, um, and it beats you down. It's where that what do they imposter syndrome, which
mm,
we all deal with it.
mhm,
Um, it's the thing that makes it hard to ask that girl out that you see down, on the dance floor or whatever. It's that same. It's the things that make you question yourself or doubt your direction. That voice, from my experience, is never from God.
mm,
That those are usually the things that are trying to limit me, and they're not there to help me find my purpose, my place, my life story, or anything. Now, on the other hand, the voice that comes into your head and speaks in a loving and graceful way and encouraging way and says, "Yeah, you can do this. You can fail at this, and it's okay."
mm,
Um, that's the voice that I listen to. That's the voice that I trust, and that's the voice I attribute that voice as coming from God. And I know not everybody has that same perspective, and that's okay too. I just think it's important that we all surrender to something that's larger than ourselves.
mm, mm. Man, Scott, I feel like you are literally talking directly to my heart. A lot of that resonates, and just being on the path. Sometimes there's a lot of different questions that come up. So just trusting that
Yeah.
becomes a job in itself. So I really like how you put that. You were saying this just now. Resilience, it obviously looks different for everyone. For some it's faith, for others it's grit, for some it's just pure stubbornness. When you were working on your book, what helped you to keep going, when the process or life just got tough or uncertain for you?
Uh, I had a uh, I had a vision. That's not like I was seeing in the future, but I just had this idea of what it was going to look like and feel like to have this thing done. And honestly, took me about two total years from when I started reading it or started writing it to when we finally published it. And now looking back, I wish I had waited longer.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just so anxious to get it out and to get over that part of the journey. And I think I could have done a lot better if I'd worked, like actually taken the time to work and build an audience and all those kinds of things.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that's also kind of not who I am. I'm not really big on self-promotion. I'd much rather tell you the stories of all the ways that I screwed up. I think it's a lot more fun. It's funnier for sure. And but hopefully it points the light in the right place, which to me is for God and to talk about the things that He's done in my life and the journey and the adventure that I've been on. It really has nothing to do with my skill. It was really opportunity that was given to me, and the only thing I did about it was I took it, and I gave God a chance when I certainly didn't want to, but I just didn't have another choice.
Hmm. Hmm. Letting go and letting God. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, a lot of the listeners here are aspiring authors, and a lot of people are standing at a crossroad right now. What would you say to someone who's been meaning to write their book, but maybe they feel stuck, maybe they're afraid, or just feel like they're not ready?
Um, no, I would encourage you to start writing.
Hmm.
Uh, the thing that is interesting about the process of starting is that you don't really have to start at the beginning. You don't really have to start in a cohesive way. Just start dumping things out,
Hmm.
and you can find the threads through it later. There's a great book called The Artist's Way by Julie Cameron, who talks about morning pages and waking up every morning and writing out three handwritten pages to just dump your brain.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I would love to tell you that I do that every day, but I don't. But the principles behind it, I totally embrace, and I love that idea of just getting it on the page. Um, I've started to try to work on some fiction ideas and getting some things on the page for that, which is a lot harder for me. But uh, the writing process, though, it requires motion in order for the art to come to life. And
Hmm.
as long as you're sitting there staring at a blank screen, you're never going to get there.
Hmm. Ain't that the truth? Get it in motion. So we're gonna wrap up here soon, Scott. But I like to ask, how did you come up with the title, "A Row with Two Chairs"? Can you talk about that?
Totally. So, told you we walked into this church full of people wearing leather jackets and motorcycle boots, and I didn't want to be around any of them. So we found in this church the seats were kind of weird, and there happened to be a row that had only two chairs, and I sat there in
Mm,
that row with my girlfriend and listened to this sermon that to me only had one thing that was said, and that it was that God's not mad at you, he loves you. It was said over and over and over again. Now
mm,
became a very prolific member of that church, so I was able to actually find the recordings of the sermon and go
mm,
back and listen to it to see if that night if it was what I really heard. I mean the pieces are there, but it didn't stand out nearly the same way it did to me on that night.
mm,
Um, and so in that row with two chairs was when I decided to give this faith thing a try. And it wasn't, they say give your life to Jesus. I didn't give my life to anybody. I said I'm going to try this for 30 days and see if there's anything to it. And
mm,
worst case scenario, it's all BS and I get to live for 30 more days, which where I was sitting, that's a pretty big win. And alternatively, maybe there was something to it. Maybe my life could really change and I could experience um, renewal.
mm.
So I gave it a 30-day test, and now we're 20, almost 21 years in, and that test continues.
Mm,
God's still trying to earn my keep. No, I'm just kidding. He's got me.
mm. That's a strong testimony, Scott. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, my
So
pleasure.
I like to kind of wrap things up with something I call the final chapter. If you could, and you've dropped so much wisdom and insight here, but if you could leave one piece of encouragement with our listeners, something they can take with them long after this episode, what would it be?
So I have a very unique perspective in life in that it's very clear to me what my life was like before I was a believer and then after. Um, and that perspective allows me to look back and remember what what were the obstacles to me making the choices and decisions that I needed to make to get my life right. Now, there's a billion, but the biggest one that I am most aware of was that I had absolutely no vision for what my life could look like
Mm,
without the things that I was addicted to.
mm,
And so when I encounter other people in life that are dealing with substance abuse, that's usually where I first start, is in this idea that I know that you don't have a vision for what your life can look like if you don't use every single day. So I want to give you, hopefully, a peek into what life can be.
mm,
And I can tell you that because I was in that position and because I'm where I am today, that there is so much more available to us. Now, that conversation is really easy to have with people who are dealing with substance abuse problems and all sorts of other things. But the thing that I've come to realize more in my life in later years is that we're all in recovery. We
mm,
are all battling things in our lives that take our life from us, that we surrender to. Maybe it's scrolling, maybe it's, porn or, all sorts of different things that can take over in our life and become the thing that steers us as opposed to this vision for something else.
mm,
And when we're in the midst of that, no matter who they are, no matter who we are, because I still deal with these things too, is that it's that lack of vision that locks us in.
mm,
So so work to find that vision to get beyond it, surrender to it, and lunge, and you will not be disappointed.
mm.
At least not in the long run. You might once or twice.
Keep
The long
going.
game is worth it.
That's well put, Scott. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for sharing your heart and your story today. Where can people find your book and follow your journey?
Well, the book is sold anywhere the books are sold. You can get a copy of A Row with Two Chairs. Easiest probably to get on Amazon. Um, and right now we're working on I've got a couple different sites. ScottMocha.com, you can find me. We're also working on a new thing called Impossible Path, which is meant to be a community for people who are deconstructing faith or maybe deconstructing their journey. I think we're going to have people there that are faith-filled and some that aren't, because I also am an artist and I love to talk in those spaces. So I look for people who are trying to find their most authentic journey, and sometimes that path looks pretty impossible. So that's what led us into Impossible Path, and it's impossiblepath.com.
Right on, Scott. Well, thanks for being here with us today. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and get the book, pick up the book. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Hey, thank you, Kary. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into the Resilient Author Podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you both inspiration and practical tools for your own journey. If you've been carrying the idea for a book, but haven't started, or you started and feel stuck, I'd love to invite you to join my 5-day Speak Your Book Challenge. In just 5 days, you'll speak the outline of your first draft and discover how to turn it into a finished manuscript and a published book. You can join anytime at voicetobook.co/challenge. Until next time, keep going, stay resilient, and remember, your story matters.